introduce myself, Otto Pagin on behalf of Missouri NEA.
I want to know how you justify not having kids in school and making taxpayers pay for brick and mortar schools that aren't being used.
Our folks are not people.
So is it a trade-off? Do you think that NEA could support maybe giving some of that money back to folks that are paying for brand new brick and mortar schools? So my point is, no, you're not going to support that. But my point is, you can't have it both ways. Do you think when the second charter redo was done, do you think it's safe to say that there was some influence or negotiating done so it was designed to fail? Well, I mean, similar to, let me just compare it to the virtual access program.
Yeah.
To give all the power to a superintendent to decide what's best for a child, to tell me if I can use the virtual access program that we have in state law or not, to give it to one person who's unelected, number one. I mean, that was designed to fail. It was designed to hurt the program so it couldn't get off the ground. The same thing was done with charters. It was designed to fail. You know, we all understand it's hard to get stuff done in the Senate. So I hope that's not the case this year. And I hope whenever you do testify, you're forthright and you admit that, yeah, that probably happened back in the past. Because whenever everyone's honest, maybe we can get somewhere where everyone can agree on something, right?
My impression is there has been not full compliance with at least the intent of Senate Bill 603 from 2018 in terms of really providing ready access. You know, there is a general expectation that it's available on substantially similar process as in-person courses, and there's an appeals process that can ultimately go to DESE. So it's
an appeal if somebody gets denied?
Correct.
There shouldn't be an appeal. There shouldn't be a denial.
Well, there should always probably be, whether it's public, private, or any kind of school, a process by which the school makes sure that sound decisions are being made for
So the school knows better than me, the parent.
I think
the teachers know better than me, the parent.
I think you have to.
Teachers going to pay my taxes.
You have to recognize that every school has a responsibility for every child.
No,
sure that they're.
No, the parent has a responsibility for the child, not the school.
Do bear in mind, you're speaking of children who have parents. Many, many thousands of Missouri public school students don't have parents in the game. And again, the ultimate responsibility, whether it's public or private, you can't just arbitrarily say, I want to take this class. It has to have some reasonable connection.
Well, I think we see the breakdown is the ideology that you believe the school has to take care of everybody, and I believe parents have to take care of everybody. Thank you.
So, out of the 32 buildings in Columbia, 7 of those buildings are doing much worse than the majority of the charter schools existing right now. So why do you not want those parents in Columbia and other areas of the state to have a choice for their children? Can you explain that to this committee?
How many schools is enough? For Columbia, how many schools is enough, right? You could have someone come to the school board and say, we want to build another school. And then another person come, and you can have 10 people come to Columbia Public Schools board and say, we want to have 10 more schools. That might make sense if they have the resources, but if they don't, there could be consequences.
I think now with COVID, the public is very much in tune to what's going on, and they want choices. The private schools in Columbia, and there's many, all have waiting lists now. And these parents that are not happy with what's going on, aside from COVID, just with the lack of a quality education that some of the public school buildings are not providing to the kids, they would like to have options. And sooner or later, you got to realize that public education can't be the only game in town.
The idea here is to give families more options, not teachers more options, not superintendents more options, not school boards more options, families and children. And number 2, I want to know who in this room thinks that a school board is accountable. I don't see anyone raising hands. Okay, 1, the teacher. Because you know what's interesting that the teacher raised her hand, and no offense, is teachers elect school boards. Teachers elect school boards. Teachers' unions elect school boards. Superintendents elect school boards. It's gotten so bad that now superintendent contracts are pushed back on the front end 1 year at a time. You know why? Because if somebody tries to make them accountable, well, they got 3 years to replace the school board because of the contract, or they face a big buyout. You know, the public is not falling for this anymore. I know my district is done. They are trying to take the school board back away from the teachers, away from the NEA because of this stuff. So I hope so many people are watching right now because they really care about school reform. This is the #1 issue across the state. COVID just helped us bring it to the forefront. This has been festering for so long. And you know, if we're going to talk about accountability, let's talk about it for real. Let's talk about how school boards are not accountable. We've allowed it to happen. It's our fault. We've become very apathetic to April elections. But we all know who runs April elections. Thank you.
Representative Abner.
There's an element here of what's taken place in Kansas City that is a huge success story. Because the parents are talking and they're moving their kids to areas where they're succeeding. And I don't care what the spectrum is, what part of the economic spectrum, because the bottom line is that less than half of the Missouri students are meeting grade level expectations. So with that being said, there are some charters that fail. It's based upon leadership, and there are some charters that do exceptionally well. So with that, here are some numbers that show the success. 90% of the top language arts public schools in Kansas City and St. Louis, charters. 80% of the top mathematics public schools in St. Louis, charters. 6 of the top 10 public schools in Kansas City and St. Louis, charters. And the parents are talking because 46% of the kids in Kansas City public schools, charters. And the statistic that is really important to me is this. Charter school students are 4.5 times less likely to transfer during the school year.
There's a major break with reality of where parents are today. They're tired of people with the idea that only the highest level are smart enough and know enough and have any understanding of education to make decisions for educational decisions for the child. And I think that's where there's just a major disconnect in reality of where parents are today. And it's causing, I think those frustrations are mounting, especially COVID, I think, has revealed that as well. And so you have a totally different perspective when it comes to who is the highest level of decision making when it comes to the education of a child. And I know people have mentioned on this committee that we're all here. We think we have the best interest of the child in mind when it comes to these policies that we're debating and vetting. But I see very different perspectives when it comes to how that should take place. And I really think it boils down to, and what I'm getting at in this question, the philosophy of the highest level being government, and the philosophy of the highest level being those that are invested in that child the most in their life, be that a parent, guardian, grandparent, or whoever it is, that truly has the best interest of that child at heart. And I think that's what this boils down to, is two very different philosophies when it comes to who has the best interest of the child in mind and at heart.